As I'm writing my essay for my WSET diploma about sustainable Bordeaux, I wanted to hear and share with you some insider knowledge from a prestigious chateau in the area. Château Lagrange is a classified third growth estate with the largest single vineyard area among classified estates in the Médoc. My guest was Matthieu Bordes, general manager and winemaker at the estate since 2006. In this episode, you'll hear why organic farming might not be sustainable, which are the biggest, most surprising contributors to the environmental pollution by a winery, why and which environmental certifications would be beneficial for further development, whether or not the 2030 Bordeaux Blend can be achieved, how the appellation evolved in the last decades, and how the typical Bordeaux might change in the future, and why you might be the reason that the estate isn't 100% organic yet. Enjoy! Oh, and one more thing. I finally launched my new website, wineghost.com, which is more like a blog than a collection of the previous podcast episodes. I wrote about my cellar visits in Tenerife, about the Priorat terroir more in depth, and posting wine and book recommendations which you cannot find on my social media sites. So please check it out and leave a feedback on any platform that suits you. It is greatly appreciated. Cheers! Matthieu, thank you very much for your time. Can you talk a little bit about your position and, of course, about the chateau?
So I have been working at Lagrange for 16 years now. I entered in 17 as a general manager winemaker. Chateau Lagrange is much more older than me. It started a long time ago. The plots that we are the owner in one single block located on the highest point of the appellation, 24 meters above the sea level, belongs to the chateau for more than 400 years. And we had several family owners who own the chateau, and since 1983, it's a Japanese family, Saji and Tori family, who are also, the name of maybe Suntory, which is the third biggest company in the world for soft drink, beverage, and spirits. And they bought the estate because they are extremely, they love the wine for a long time, because they have also other wineries in Japan, but not only in Japan, in Germany as well. And they have a tagline, since the beginning. The tagline of Suntory is living in harmony between human and nature. So it's something that's extremely important for them, and that's one of the reasons the chateau have since a long time we try to be the most sustainable as possible and the most friendly regarding the environment. We used to say that we rent the terroir for the next generations, and you know that to make a great wine, because you are a sommelier, the main point is the terroir, because if you give me a sandy beach, you can be the best winemaker in the world. You can grow very high quality grapes, and it's impossible to produce high quality wines. So the terroir is the key point, and we try to do our best not to impact too much, in a bad way, of course, the Lagrange estate. And the second point also, which is extremely important, because I'm maybe the biggest drinker of Lagrange in the world, and I want to live as long as possible. So I always ask to my team, please use the less chemicals as possible, and do our best to make things more sustainable. But it's important because, believe me, I drink a lot. Sometimes too much, but a lot of wine from Lagrange.
Well, so, you look great, so it's a good quality.
Look, I'm 84 years old.
Yeah.
Kidding. So since the beginning, I arrived at the end of 2006, but Lagrange started a long time ago, and in the middle of the 90s, they started to work with the INRA, which is the National Institute of Research of Agronomy. And they worked at that time also with a company to develop the caps for the pheromone caps to fight against insects. It was in the middle of 90s, what we call the pheromone caps. Now all the estate is under pheromone caps. It allowed us to not to use insecticide, which is extremely important.
It's basically a hormonal thing,
yes,
right?
It's you know, the fly, the butterfly, which is responsible for worms, and worms made some botrytis. It's Edemis and Cochidis. That's the name, the Latin name of these two butterfly. And the idea was during 2 or 3 times a year, they have sexual they reproduce themselves, and they create worms, and the worms stick the grapes, and then you can have a lot of botrytis. So the goal was we used before, and some chateaus used or continue to use them, some insecticide to kill this butterfly to avoid the worms. But BASF and the institute, the Research Agronomy Institute, worked at that time on a pheromone, a female pheromone. The idea was to put in the vineyard every 20 square meters some pheromone caps to make more difficult the meeting between the male and the female, and to avoid the eggs and finally the worms. So pheromone caps blow through a lot of quantity of female pheromone, and the male couldn't find female to reproduce themselves. That was the idea. And it works extremely well. So we have all the vineyard under this method. And the first study started in the middle of 90s, so quite a long time ago, more than 25 years ago.
Cool.
In 2005, we did our carbon count on the estate, just to have a 0 point and just a vision about what are the best way for us to reduce the carbon count. Unfortunately, the most important thing is the bottle, the glass. Producing the bottle has a big impact. If in my memories, it's more than 50% of the carbon count of the estate. Wow. So we try to reduce also the weight of the glass as much as we can.
I also saw on the website that you also gained an integrated agricultural certificate.
Yes, at that time we were
about that.
Exactly. At that time, we were certified by the name of Terravitis, because 20 years ago you don't have a lot of kind of label, not a lot of label at that time, and we choose Terravitis. But now we are IHVE3. We are ISO 14001, and we have also. We are involved in a SME management system environment with plenty of chateaus. And Lagrange, since 2008, has also a big part of the estate managing in an organic way of farming. So we have plenty of things, because the goal is not to necessarily become organic, because in Bordeaux it's very difficult. And organic is not so sustainable. Be careful. It's two things totally different. We have 1/3 of the estate managed in organic way of farming. But you know, in organic way of farming, you use copper and sulfur mainly. But in Bordeaux area, we have a lot of rainfall came from the ocean, from the west. And some vintages is quite difficult, even with copper and sulfur, to manage the mildew and the botrytis as well, almost all the disease. So we think to find the best solution for environment and also chemicals you use. So we do what I call something like mix between sustainable, which is more sustainable, a mix between organic and conventional, we could say. Something that we are more used to in a wine growing, and not only in Bordeaux but almost everywhere. And we started.
Can I ask you something? Because you said organic is not necessarily sustainable. Do you say that because of copper and because of its a heavy metal?
Alors, you could have the amount of copper, even if with organic trials that we have, it allows us to reduce the quantity of copper compared to what Bordeaux were used to use 20 years ago. But no, it's not in a year you have a lot of rainfall because of copper and sulfur are contact products. If you receive 5 millimeters of rainfall, then the copper fall down, and you have to respray. Just to let you know, in 2021, which was quite challenging during the spring, which is the most difficult period to manage. I mean, May, June, end of April, May and June, mainly. In 2021, on a sustainable part, we did 12 spraying, okay? On the organic plots, 19 spraying.
Wow.
One of my neighbors, which is 100% organic certified, used 29 spraying. Okay. Alors, we say, okay, one spraying is mainly copper, why not? But one spraying for an estate like us represents 10 trucks, goes into the vineyard. Each truck used 1,000 liters of fuel a day.
Wow.
The more it's raining, the more you spray. And then it means that you compact also the soil because the soil are totally wet. It's not sustainable at all, believe me. So in this way, if you look at the carbon count, ridiculous.
And how do how does this carbon count work? Like, do you basically like insert the data into this count and then it?
No. It was something it was established. It was done 1 year in 2005, and then at the time the report mentioned the key point which have a big impact on the carbon count. But we don't have something like a network that you can add a few things and it gives you at the end the carbon count of the year. No, it's not in this way. But we know where we try where we could have the most impact, the biggest impact on the carbon count. But the main point is the bottle. The bottle. But we are traveling much more also nowadays compared to 30 years ago. And in the way we travel, for example, to go to Paris, I remember that a few years ago, they went mainly by plane. Nowadays, most of the travel in Europe are done by train, if it's possible. Even for UK, I was in Amsterdam, in Belgium, in UK also by train. So we try to use the train as much as possible. Of course, to go to New York, it's more difficult. Even with the boat, it takes too much time. But we try also to when we travel, it's not only for 24 hours. You know, a long time ago, I remember that some chateaus and even in Lagrange, we could travel for 3 days until US, for example. Nowadays, I try to spend much more time. When I'm traveling in this place, I try to organize a much larger schedule. The maximum I did was 6 weeks in Asia in one time. It's crazy, yeah? But that was it's one of the good way to reduce also the carbon count, because we have to continue to promote and to do to do plenty of things, tasting, wine dinner, etc., etc.
Yeah, because it's one impression what I get from this 15 minutes, that it's a lot more complex topic than one might think at the first sight, right? Or at first glance. If you take count, it's not only the vineyard, it's also the winery, the water management, probably
exactly.
the solar, how do you travel, where do you export, which bottles do you use, I don't know what else.
Wood cases, for example, before we used a lot of wood cases. This year, we have more than 60% of the second label, which is packed with cardboard, and more than 25 for the Grand Vin. The Grand Vin 2 years ago was 100% in wood box, and the second label only 20% in cardboard compared to 60% now. So it's also something very interesting to reduce the carbon count.
It's a bad news. It's a bad news for us sommeliers who like to collect.
We continue to have some wood case, and don't worry. But it's also better for your back, when you have to transport into the cellar. It's always much better to have a flat 6 cardboard compared to wood cases. You gain weight, and it's good. If you gain weight, it's extremely interesting because some for shipment with lowest weight, you use less fuel also to transport, for the transportation of the shipment of the wood case, the bottles. So it's few things, I compare always as a boat race around the world. Sometimes it's only small things that you add them, and then you can gain some seconds, minutes, and finally days. We have, in all our investments, we try to think about also the sustainability and the electricity, the fuel, and everything. And when we renovated 3 years ago the cellar, we covered the cellar with 800 square meters of solar panel. Then we use for ourselves. We don't resell it to the
network
company. Yes, exactly. We use them, and it represents between 15 and 20% of the electricity consumption of the estate.
Cool.
Which is one of the points. We try to yes.
And you had already talked about some certificates, but why is it important to you, and how do these certificates maybe help you in achieving your goal in terms of sustainability, or maybe reduce your carbon footprint?
We never mention on the back label that we are certified. It's not a key point for us to say we are certified, but in our meaning, it's the same as we produce wine. We have to be sustainable. And what is interesting in such kind of a certification is, for example, the HVE3. We have been working with a company and plenty of chateaus, and by discussion, you can learn from the others. You can bring some good things to the other of the group, and finally, it's a sort of synergy. And there is also a good competition between all of us. We try to do our best to be better than the neighbors, and it's extremely positive. So by having such a label, it's not having the label which is interesting, but it's before working all together and try to find the best solution to reduce the impact on the environment. And we used to work every year with a company who the name is Merital, and they are working with I don't know how many chateaus, but a lot. And we can compare our position compared to the whole position of all of our neighbors, which is extremely interesting to reduce, to continue to reduce the water, the electricity, the quantity of spraying and everything. So that's Bordeaux what Bordeaux is doing now, it's extremely interesting. We have a very good vibes, and we work a lot of on this way.
Yeah. And do you see Bordeaux as the appellation has this goal, as a sustainable goal for 2030, yeah, right? And do you see it as a realistic goal that 65% of Bordeaux chateaus have kind of environmental certification, and I think it's for 2030 it should be compulsory, right?
Yes, it's better than 5 or even 10 years, of course, but even than 5 years ago, the situation in Bordeaux and the involvement of the wineries in Bordeaux is much, much better. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if we could reach 100% in the next following years, but I'm sure that we will be extremely close. And today, Bordeaux, regarding the weather conditions we have, I think it's one of the most active region in the wine, in the sustainability in the wine business, in the wine process.
Yeah.
I think we are on a good way. For example, we don't have herbicide on the estate since a long time. We just plow in the soil. We try to add also some. We use grass and we use plenty of different things, but there is no herbicide anymore. Bordeaux is thinking about having a more biodiversity also in the soil and the subsoil. Mm-hmm. During a long time, I remember I started in the middle of 90s. For the wineries and for most of the owners, the ground has to be without anything. So you have two ways. Right? Yeah. Yes, you have two ways. You can use herbicides, or you can plow the soil. But most of the people don't want anything in the vineyard. Nowadays, if you look at in Bordeaux, I have plots 100% covered with grass, just in the interrow, and we plow just under the row, or it's 100% plowed. We can do almost every process, and it's more and more like that in Bordeaux, especially in our appellation when you have some facilities, because it costs a lot, and you need to find solution. It costs a lot, but finally, I see that more and more people are more sustainable with that. Mm-hmm. 20 years ago, it was crazy in Bordeaux. And I remember that I used, even in my first estate where I was, it was 80% of the estate, which was, we used herbicide at that time. And even some classified growth. 10 years ago, some of them could use 70% of herbicide, of 80% of herbicide. Nowadays, almost, I think, no class growth nowadays use herbicide anymore. So all of that is working on a good way.
Mm-hmm. And because you said that it's 20%, I think that was organic, right? In your of your vineyards, but why this 20%? So if you look at a vineyard, what are maybe the requirements that you can work there organically or biodynamically, or you cannot work there with this kind of measures?
We have 1/3 of the estate in organic way of farming, and I have plots for the second label and plots for the first label. And the things that why I'm not 100% so far is because with the organic plots, I could not guarantee a certain level of quantity. Alors, it's not because we want to have a lot of wines. It's just we want to have the quantity which makes the turnover enough to be sustainable also. And for Lagrange, nowadays, it's 31 hectoliters per hectare. If I'm 31 and above, it's fine. If I'm below, we lose money. And it's a private company. I don't have the government who give me a lot of money. They don't give me any money. So we have to be sustainable and we have to maintain 31 minimum. And with organic, on average, over the last 10 years, it's much more close to 24, 25. So if you want to buy my wine 20% higher price, why I would like to be 100%, but I'm not sure it works like that. So we try to, I'm used to say that I'm not something like Ayatollah from organic or non-organic. I try to take in all the process the best for environment, the best for quality of the wine, and the best for people who drink my wine. So that's the reason why I think nowadays is the most suitable and sustainable approach for producing good wine. And most of my colleagues are thinking also in the same way.
Cool. And because the main topic of this conversation is, of course, sustainability, but you are also from a very prestigious chateau. So because you are in the left bank in Saint-Julien, and of course it's Cabernet land, basically, or more Cabernet.
Yes.
But can you talk a little bit about the portfolio and maybe how, or do you think that the wine changed since the last couple of decades?
Yes.
And maybe how do the vines change in the next couple of decades?
Yes, of course. The wine changed a lot. For many reasons. Alors, for Lagrange, first point, when it was bought in 1983, in the 60s and 80s and 70s, it was extremely difficult in Bordeaux. Most of the chateaus lost a lot of quantity of money. It was extremely difficult to sell the wine. So all was almost not in ruin, but in a very bad conditions. The facilities, even the vineyard. So since the vintage 1982, which was a little bit the rebirth of Bordeaux, most of the chateaus start to sell their wine and then receive some money and start to repair first the roof of the chateau, then the vat room, and invested also in the vineyard. Lagrange was bought in 1983, and the owner invested immediately 3 times more than he purchased the chateau. 10 million, he bought 10 million and immediately invested 30 million euro, a huge amount of money, to renovate everything from the vineyard to the chateau, of course, but the facilities, the vat room, the barrel cellar, and everything. So that was the first point. Second point, they created the second wine, Les Fiefs de Lagrange, because before all the plots were blended together to create only one wine. So to increase the quality, you have to select, of course, the best plots, the plots which give you the best grapes, and the young vines, or the vines which are planted in a more sandy soil or with more clay and less gravels, are usually less complex and are dedicated much more for the second wine. So immediately the quality of the Grand Vin has improved a lot. Another point which is extremely important is finally the philosophy of the company. If your owner want to make a lot of profit, he will ask you to produce a lot of quantity of wine. But the risk is that your wine is always compared with your neighbors. And if you produce too much quantity of Grand Vin, you dilute a little bit the quality, because it means that you are obliged to put some plots that maybe it would not have been necessary to include in the final blend. So there is a competition between all of us that people try to reduce to be self-efficient regarding the turnover, but also maintain a high level of quality. And at Lagrange, I'm extremely happy because my owner has only one goal, quality first, as he used to say. And I'm allowed to produce a very small quantity if I want to focus on quality. Usually we produce between 30 and 40% of Grand Vin. We have invested a lot in the cellar. by having small vats. Before, when I arrived almost 16 years ago, we had a 56 vat for 103 plots. Now I have 102 vats for 103 plots. So it's like a chef in his kitchen. You can manage very efficiently the vinification process depending on the grapes you tasted, the skins, the seeds, the maturity, the ripeness. But also you can pick, because date of picking is a key point, to at the right time the plots or the intra-plot selection, because you know that they have its own tank. You're not obliged to premix, to blend in the vat, to fill the vat. And this point is extremely important because we increase drastically the quality. The date of picking is one of the key points. Lagrange was the first chateau, one of the first in the middle of 80s to de-leaf also. Nowadays, most of the people de-leaf, but a little bit less than before because of the global warming and the hot weather conditions. And we did also the green harvest in the middle of 80s. We were one of the first estates to do that. And Lagrange, it's nowadays the blend. We do the blend blind. With my team, we are 5 enologists on the estate. We taste the 120 samples, almost blind, and just focusing on quality. And then we blend the best with the best and create the new wine. And at the end, we look at the wine we choose and we say, okay, this year it's 80% Cabernet Sauvignon. But there is no recipe in advance. In the 80s, the blend was 50, 55 Cab, 40, 45 Merlot. Bless you.
Thank you.
In the 90s, almost the same, 55, sometimes 60% Cab. Since 2000, I arrived at the end of the seats. Since 2007, 67 Cab, 72, 73, 75. I did 80% Cab in 19, 84 in 21, 86, the record ever last year in 2022.
But is it because of the global warming, because Cabernet gets ripe?
2 points. Global warming for sure. You're right, Matthieu. Because in the 70s, in Bordeaux, when you picked Cabernet Sauvignon at 10 degrees or 11 degrees of alcohol, you were so happy that you opened a bottle of champagne 40 years ago. Nowadays, Cabernet Sauvignon are picked between, at minimum, 12, 12.5, as like in 2021. But generally speaking, it's between 13 and 14. Never overripe. That's extremely important. For Merlot, it's not really the same, but for Cab, it's like that. So it explains why we have more Cab in our blend. And also the small vats, the date of picking, all the improvements, the sorting, the optical standard that we have since 2009 as well, which is extremely helpful to select the best of the best grapes. So all of that, it's much, much better for the wine, and it explains how the wine have changed over the last 40 years. Weather conditions, for sure. Date of picking, we can take more risk nowadays, but the small vats and all the increasing, the improvement of the facilities and the technology, and that's mainly the key point why the wines are much better and with more Cabernet Sauvignon, especially on the left bank. But you are sommelier, you know that, because long time ago we said, oh, Bordeaux, you have to wait 15 years before drinking the wine. If you drink after 2 or 3, and it was true. Tannins were extremely tight at the beginning because it was just less ripe. And nowadays we can produce wine which are much more full-bodied, with a high concentration of tannins, color, high level of color, high level of IPT. But when you taste the wine, they are extremely round and smooth compared to 20 years ago. So we produce more deep and powerful wine with much more digestibility, and we succeeded to enlarge the window of tasting. Now you can drink the wine after 5-6 years, and then without losing the ability of long cellar aging, which is, to my mind, the most the things which have changed the most over the last 20 or 30 years.
But do you think that, for example, Merlot is going to be too early ripening in the future for Bordeaux, and that's why maybe Touriga Nacional, I don't know how do you believe in this variety, but that's why maybe Touriga Nacional will be the future rather than Merlot?
Okay, so there is too much rule in France, too much rules, and we can't do what we want, unfortunately, especially if we want to keep the appellation. In Saint-Julien, we are allowed to plant only 6 grape variety, and there is no Touriga Nacional yet, or even Shiraz or something like that. So far we didn't have made some trials, but I'm sure that in the next following years, we could have such a type of grape variety. But it takes long time in Bordeaux, especially because of the government and the rules. But for the Merlot, the thing which is right, even if last year in 2022, the Merlot were extremely good. 2022 is the warmest vintage ever in Bordeaux. Before it was 2020 and before 2018. Over the last 4 years, we had the third highest, warmest vintage ever in Bordeaux. It's crazy. And finally, the Merlot was really good in 2022, but compared to Cabernet, there is no much. Cabernet are much better. So I'm thinking that in the next following years, it could be extremely difficult for Merlot, because now you are obliged to reach 15, sometimes above 15 degrees of alcohol to have a good phenolic maturity. It means flavor, aromas, and the texture of the tannins, which is not the best way to produce wine that you can age for a long time. Because with such degrees of alcohol, you can have a lack of acidity also. And the wine is not extremely well balanced, and the wines evolve extremely fast. You can enjoy it in their youth, but they don't have enough freshness, enough acidity, enough harmony to be able to reach for a long time. So for Merlot, I think it would be extremely difficult, and I hope that we could be allowed in the next following years, I won't say decades, but years, to be allowed to try maybe, I heard that Marcelin, sort of breeding between Cab and another grape variety, which has some very good results. Maybe Touriga Nacional, Shiraz, or Syrah, why not? Tempranillo, maybe.
Do you fear that maybe the authenticity or maybe the originality of Bordeaux or Bordeaux Blend would suffer if you turn to other grape varieties?
Yes, it could change, of course. For us, there is no problem. I have mainly Cabernet Sauvignon, and I'm sure that I will retire, and the Cabernet Sauvignon will be continue to be extremely good. But I agree, if we change by using different grape variety, the style of Bordeaux will be, of course, different. Because the terroir is the key point, but in the terroir, it means the knowledge of people, the know-how, but the weather condition, the soil, the subsoil, but of course, the grape variety, the clones is the key point. Merlot, yes. Merlot, Petit Verdot, Cabernet, you taste them on the same soil, it's not the same wine. So if we plant a lot of Touriga Nacional or Tempranillo in the next following years, for sure, the style of Bordeaux will be different. But we have time, because with Cabernet Sauvignon, I've never picked overripe Cabernet Sauvignon. It means that I have more than 20 or 30 years in front of us before having plots in a large quantity. If I have 1 or 2% of Tempranillo or Touriga Nacional, same as I have some Petit Verdot, okay, it will have an impact, but not so big, But a Bordeaux with 60% Touriga Nacional, 20 Tempranillo, and 20 Cabernet Sauvignon, for sure, the wine would be extremely different.
Yeah.
Not yet, Matthieu. Not yet.
Yeah, but maybe also if you start slowly and maybe you just include 5% and then maybe 3 years, then 10% Tempranillo, and then the consumers can also have like time to adjust, so to say.
Yeah. Yes, agree. But if you go back to 100 years ago, or a little bit more, when we didn't have any rootstock, we had some, the grape variety was not exactly the same also. We had at that time more Malbec, more Côte, now less and less. So things move also a little bit and we have to adapt.
Also, because we already talked a little bit about the portfolio, but I cannot help but mention this collection, Remarquable. I don't know if I could pronounce it well, but it was just very eye-catching and
yes.
Stunning. Can you talk a little bit about this?
Thank you. Yes. So we started in 2006. A barrel corporate has the opportunity to buy a specific tree in a French forest. The name of this tree was Chêne de Morat. And with this tree, they created 56 barrels, and we were lucky to buy one. The story started at that time. I don't know if you know that, but the French forest has been managed since the 17th century, under the reign of Colbert King Louis XIV. And a normal barrel that we use in most of the chateaux, the age of the oak is around 100, 120, 150 years old maximum. But the Chêne Remarquable, the special collection, was done with some trees which are more than 350 years old.
Wow.
It means that long time ago, the French forests were managed to grow oak, to build a boat and ship to fight the Britons. It was like that. It was not for wine.
Yeah.
And the French forest has to be managed by the government. And they found in this forest some beautiful tree, beautiful oaks, perfect, very low growth, so very straight, and just what they said, remarkable. And all the accounts of these trees were used to replant the forest. And after 350 years old, the Chêne de Morat was attacked by some insects. So they were obliged to cut it. And they sell it in auction. The barrel corporate created 56 barrels, and we purchased one in 2009 because it was 1306. But they dry the oak for 2 years, then they build the barrels, and we put Château Lagrange 2009 in this barrel for 21 months of aging, and 100% in its oak. And in 2011, we have the opportunity to buy also another one. The name was Chêne de Bangor, oak of Bangor, 370 years old. And we had also another opportunity in 2011, 12, 13, 14, and 15, until created this 6 specific barrel, which age each one vintages. And then we created 250 limited bottles of these 6 specific bottles. So in these bottles, you have the real Château Lagrange, 09, 11, 12, but aged 100% in its just unique barrels, which are more than 350, 370 years old. It's funny because if you taste blind side by side, the normal one and the wine which is aged in its oak, first, the first thing which is impressive is you don't feel the oak because it's 100% new oak, and the normal one are 60 new oak and 3 one-year-old oak. But the tannins and the flavor are so well integrated into the wine, and you don't feel the oaky aroma. But it gives a little bit more tannins because the grains of the oak are extremely thin, and it transfers to the wine a little bit more density.
Hmm.
And what is funny is because the grain is very fine, you have less oxygen during the aging, so the wines looks fresher a little bit if you compare like a comparison between Magnum and bottle. Magnum looks always much fresher compared to the bottle, and it's a little bit the same with this oak, this specific collection.
Wow, cool.
You know almost everything. So we did. It was the first time, and this year we will create another specific box also.
Wow, cool. But
it will be released at the end of the year. Only 250.
Wow. But do you think that, for example, because you also have some white wines, right?
Yes, we produce the white since 1996.
Uh-huh. But do you think that the whites are going to disappear with the time from the region?
I don't think so, because we have, you have great terroir, means warm, lot of gravels, but we have also some cool place in Bordeaux. And even in 2018 or 2019, les arômes de Lagrange are extremely fresh.
Okay.
So because we replanted close to 15 years ago, the white plots in a very cool place. With the frost, we have some damage when you have a frost early in the year, but in a hot vintage, we could keep the freshness, and the wine are extremely nice too. So maybe you will have white grapes in another plots, in another region, another area, but I'm sure that Bordeaux will continue to produce some white wine in the next following years. Sure.
Cool.
I'm always impressed because you can play also with the rootstock. You can give a little bit more delay to the ripeness, or pick them earlier. You have plenty of things to manage, and I'm always surprised you can also play with the grape variety. For example, 2019, which was a quite warm vintage too, I decided not to put the Sauvignon Gris in the blend, to keep only the Semillon and Sauvignon White, because Sauvignon White are always more fresh and lively compared to Sauvignon Gris. They could be more heavy. And even if I like the nose of the Sauvignon Gris, the texture and the structure could be a little bit heavier. So we decided not to put the Sauvignon Gris in the Grand Vin. So with the different variety, you can also adapt depending on the weather conditions and the wine you want to make. I think so far, I'm confident. Sustainability, you have to know that Bordeaux is also doing work a lot in the vineyard by planting some edges more and more. When you came before to Bordeaux, you can see many plots and only vine. Now people replant more and more edges to improve and increase the biodiversity. And the goal is that we hope that in the next following years, we can also reduce spraying by adding more auxiliary fauna. So a lot of effort are done in this way as well.
Unfortunately, the internet connection had suddenly enough of our conversation, and I couldn't properly say goodbye to Matthieu, but I still hope that you got something useful out of our talk. I personally found his approach very encouraging and thoughtful. If you like this episode, please don't forget to leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcast, or just get in touch with me via Instagram or email. It means a lot to me, really. May the wine ghosts be with you. Cheers!